Good morning, Arsenal family. Welcome back to another Arsenal experience. Obviously, first off, I'm not Robert Chad. I'm actually Demarcus, and I'm the intern here at the Arsenal. And I've been for the past couple months, and I've actually had just the privilege now to finally, I guess, preach. And I know we talked about this, me, Rob, and Chad a couple months ago, and here we are. And so as we wrap up the year, we can probably all agree that it's been a pretty crazy year. One like we've never experienced before, and really this year we've experienced a lot of different emotions and trials and just experiences, and really like most of it comes out of things like a lot of uncertainty, doubt, fear, maybe loss, definitely frustration, especially from myself. And really, a prime thing that I've consistently heard just in conversation with people around me is, the statement, like, I can't wait for 2021, or maybe, 2020 was an absolute disaster, or maybe it was just the absolute worst. And personally, I've even said those exact same words to myself, just because, there's truth in those statements. There actually is. And again, it has been a crazy year. For those who don't know, I'm actually a college student. I'm a senior at the University of Texas at San Antonio, or better known as UTSA. And the pandemic hit in my second semester as a junior, and kind of carried on until my first semester as a senior, being this fall. And again, nothing like I expected my senior year to be like. Everything online, and really just like no community, not being able to go on campus, things like that. And also another thing is I actually worked on campus. So just like my job security and my job situation completely just unraveled before my eyes. And again, going back to the idea of, like we've all felt some frustration and loss. For me, majority of that came from, my job. But really the biggest thing for me that 2020, the biggest loss, pain that I felt really came from, my family actually leaving the state of Texas once again, and me kind of having to do life without them. For those who don't know, I'm actually from Miami, Florida, the 305. And when I was around 11 or 12, I actually moved from Miami, Florida to Austin, Texas to live with my aunt and uncle, as, my parents stayed behind, and also my older sister and my younger brother. And that's a whole different story for another time. But yeah, so I made that move on my own. And really for 8 years, I had to kind of, go through life without, having my parents and my family like really close to me. And it was difficult. It was hard. And I'll explain a little bit why, like I'm telling you, that story. So actually they moved to Austin, Texas last summer, not COVID summer, but the summer prior to that. So for a little over a year, they lived here. And really now they actually just moved back. My mom specifically and my younger brother just moved back to Florida, and my older sister moved to Michigan. With my niece, her daughter, Lorelina. And for me, as we close the year 2020, I assumed that, the worst had come, like school is unraveling, my job, like all this stuff just completely different, no community, no really true friend group to be around, and group gatherings like I'm used to. But nah, like 2020 had, one more thing, and that was my family leaving once again. And for me, there's a lot of pain in that, because again, for those 8 years, growing up, that like 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old Demarcus having to grow up without, having that like stability, was just excruciating and really just hard for me. Especially around like the holiday season, it should be a time of joy, happiness, and just comfort. But for me, that was never really the case. I always felt like an outsider with my aunt and uncle. And let me just be clear about this. I'm not saying that they excluded me, because they did not. They absolutely included me. But still, it just didn't feel, like a parent, being around your parents would around the holiday season. And to have to experience that again has just been just really hard. And I'm not oblivious to the fact that there are many out there who've also just been through a lot more, worse things. That being maybe lost family member, a lost job, just like uncertainty, maybe financially because of the pandemic. You know, maybe that one internship that you wanted got, canceled because of the pandemic. Maybe that one trip that you're looking forward to, you had to postpone it, maybe even cancel it. Maybe the wedding that you had planned, you had to, maybe cancel and postpone it. In a sense, 2020 has all brought us some sort of pain and suffering. And really today, I want to just kind of take a closer look at 2020 and not just bypass it, not just say, hey, I want to forget 2020. I actually want us to take a step back and really look at 2020 and see what 2020 had to offer us as a whole. And really the question that I want to ask and propose to everyone watching is, what would it look like to optimize our pain instead of minimizing it? In Romans 5:3-4, it says, more than that, we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. I'm going to read that one more time for you. More than that, we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. Who would have thought that from suffering you could get to hope? That one of my favorite things to say is this is like paradoxical. It doesn't really make sense, but when you look at it closely, it makes sense. And really just kind of understanding that passage there, like we can actually get to rejoice in our sufferings. Like, how does that make sense? And how do we actually get from suffering to hope? And I'm hoping to kind of break that down and just kind of give you guys insight on how we can actually use 2020 for our advantage and actually learn so much from it, so that maybe 2021 could be just that much better for us. And I want our pain and suffering to matter, and I want it to count, because it does. Our feelings, our experiences, all these things matter. And really what pain and suffering brings is an opportunity to grow, to expand, to just further, just our experiences here on earth as believers. And really what it really does is provides us just assets to love well, but then also love better, with those around us. And we can actually learn from our pain. There's a book called Drops Like Stars by Rob Bell. Some of you may have heard of him, maybe not. And in Rob Bell's book, he talks about this thing called the art of failure. And it's often seen that failure is seen as maybe a sin, a mistake, a mess up, maybe something negative. And really a lot of us can maybe see 2020 as just that, a failure. A sin, missing the mark of expectation that we had for 2020. But really what Rob Bell kind of encompasses and explains to that is no, failure actually produces something in us that'll just help us. And here's the bottom line, if we too quickly bypass 2020 and we shove away the pain and the experiences that we've felt, we just waste an entire year of our life. And friend, I would really just hate if we all consistently went through this cycle of suffering and pain and never learned from it, but just aimlessly just thought, wow, this is all meaningless. Because it's not. There's actually something, there's hidden gems in there that we can gain and we can pull to, again, better our lives, to better love those around us, and really to equip us better for the next shortcoming. Because friend, in 2021, I promise you that there will be shortcomings. There will be other things that may rock us and rattle, us. But if we're able to look back and God got me through that, or I understand why I had to go through this. God didn't orchestrate this, but He used it for this thing. I don't know what that may be for you, but I challenge you to just take a step back and consider what it is for you. We've all heard this saying, God doesn't, cause suffering and tragedies, but He sure will use them. And I'm a big believer in that. And really one of the greatest tragedies that a believer can can maybe keep in mind is, our Savior on a cross. Like, just think about, like, our Savior, like, Jesus, in like God in the flesh, on the cross, donezo. Just like, could you imagine what the disciples, thought in that moment, what they were feeling in that moment? Went to the grave, and God didn't stop there. God didn't stop there. Like, that wasn't the end of the pain and the suffering, or that was the end of the pain and the suffering. Because what came from that? Jesus rising from the grave. And here's a beautiful thing that, like, I like to think about is, like, through that pain and suffering, like, came something so good, but then also came connection. Because now, like, our relationship with Christ, like it's bridged. Because through pain and suffering, it's bridged. Through that pain and suffering that Jesus endured on the cross, like, our relationship with the Lord is bridged together as one. And that wasn't for nothing. It wasn't meaningless. And in that same way, the things that we go through, the pain, the suffering, it's not meaningless. It can actually bridge us closer to the Lord, bridge us closer to our family members, our friends, those who are also suffering. And really, our suffering, going through that suffering, it's through suffering, really, that we get to peace, that we get to have peace. And it's through suffering and pain that we also get to give peace. And what I mean by that is, we've all gone through things, maybe different. But if someone comes to me and says, hey, like, I'm really struggling with this or that, I now have the tools to tap into my own pain and suffering and be like, well, hey, like, I've been there too, friend, and you're not alone. And in that, like, we're bridged together. And again, don't be surprised when things get rocky, because they will. But here's this. In Romans 8:29, it says, you are predestined to be conformed to the image of Christ. You are predestined to be conformed to the image of Christ. Predestined, like, it's going to happen. And it's like, it's just bizarre to think about. But again, through our pain, through our suffering, through those mistakes, through the things that didn't go well, the things that we really had high hopes for, but that just didn't go the way we wanted to, like, God is still using those things to conform us to be more like Christ. And again, for who? For those around us, to bridge the gap between one another. Like, God is using those things. Again, maybe not orchestrated those things, but he's maneuvering, he's finessing those things to perfectly just line up in a way that just helps us just be more alive and closer to him, closer to those around us. And really, if we don't, if we just bypass and bottle up these emotions, what really happens, they just start to spill over in other places in our lives and build up. And maybe we just, like, act sporadic and get angry or just go numb. We get cold. But really, through our pain and our suffering and being vulnerable in that moment, we allow others around us to also be vulnerable and connect and know that they're not alone, that they don't have to pretend, they don't have to put on this mask of life is great. They can be real and raw. And it's through our pain and our suffering and our willingness to be vulnerable that we get there and that we're able to connect better with those around us. And really, your pain better equips you to love others. Because again, you're able to identify with them and embrace them and say, hey, you're not alone. Like, I am with you. And I want to be clear when I say this, like, I am not minimizing your pain. I'm not saying, hey, like, you should be ecstatic and happy that, that you lost your job or you lost a family member. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the exact opposite. Like allow yourself to feel that, friend. And know that you're not alone. There's a whole community, especially here at the Arsenal, that are willing to sit with you, be with you, love on you. Like I mentioned earlier, I lived a lot of my life apart from my parents. And really what it's done for me was it's really softened my heart to the world, softened my heart to people and what they go through as well. And it's because I know, like I know pain. I know suffering. I know what it feels like to to just want to look up and why God, why me, why this? I don't understand. Doesn't make any sense. This seems meaningless. But really, what that has done is it's brought me to like where I am today. It's brought me to who I am today. And and now I can like really look back and almost thank God for orchestrating things in the way that He did, despite the things that I had to go through. And honestly, like I when it comes to my parents, like they did what they best saw fit, and I wouldn't change it for the world. It definitely was the best thing, because again, it's brought me to where I am today. And that's the really interesting thing about pain and suffering, that when we get past and when we get through and when we actually deal with those things, it actually produces us to just be more whole. So really, like, my thing is, if you've gone through pain, which I'm sure everyone watching, you have, use it. Use that pain. In a sense, make it yours. Don't make it something that you need to hide and pretend that it's not there. You can actually use it to just produce life, not only in yourself, but in those around you. Because really, that's what it is to be human, is to feel and just to relate with others around you. And if you're in pain right now, I want to let you know that it's okay. It really is. Because really the time will come when you're able to optimize that. And it may seem super confusing, like how would I be able to use me losing my job one day to optimize? I'm not too sure, but I know I know there will be an opportunity for sure. Because I know there's going to be another person that you may run into who also lost their job. And they maybe have no hope. And maybe you could be that hope for them. And that's the beauty of being vulnerable and real, is that it allows people to do the same thing and not feel like they don't have to, put on a mask, like, oh yeah, I lost my job, but God is good. Like, although true, like, nah, like they need someone to be like, hey, it's okay to drop that mask and hurt. And yeah, and again, I'm not telling you to mask your pain. I'm asking you to do the exact opposite, and to look at it, to look at pain in its face and say, hey, what do you have to offer me? Because it matters. And yeah, in 2020, it actually matters. It really does. And can we make the most of it, and not just simply just put it past us? We don't have to soak in it and sit in it forever. But will we take what we need from 2020, put it in our arsenal to love well, to love others well, and just to do life well in 2021? It's really a scary thing to share your pain as well. Like, I know that. But the reason why I'm doing it right now in this moment with you is because I know the benefits of it, and I know that me being vulnerable and real just produces so much more life, not only for me, but for those around me, those of you who are watching. Because I know you can identify with me somewhere or another. And really, like, as we do that, that space that we share becomes a safe place, and a place that's full of hope, that all stemmed from us both going through some type of suffering. And really, that's what your pain can do for you and for those around you. It can build an atmosphere of hope. So Arsenal fam, those watching, your pain matters, so use it. Let's not let 2020 go to waste. And as we look towards 2021, again, as New Year's comes around, take a step back and consider, all that you've been through, all the experiences that those around you have been through, and ask your pain and your suffering, what do you have to offer me so that I can be prepared for the next shortcoming, the next shortcoming coming. And also just for those around me. Feel that pain. Because it's serving you in some way or another. So Arsenal fam, thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing New Year's and have an amazing week.
Arsenal fam, what did you think about Demarcus? We got another one on the teaching team here. I'm just stoked. It's like a dad watching his son, but not really. But it was exciting to get to see Demarcus just step into this role and do this. So thanks, Demarcus. Thank you for hanging out with us, Arsenal fam. Hey, this is it. This is the last time I will talk to you in 2020. So we love you. We cannot wait to see you again. And Arsenal, we'll see you next year. Peace out.